Hi everybody, this is Bill from turboDial. This video is an overview of how to set up the list autosync feature associated with PowerDial. If you have the PowerDial add-on for turboDial, then you automatically have access to this feature, and it requires a little bit of setup in order to activate it. List autosync is the way you can make sure that you are always working the latest list in Infusionsoft. Let's look at what it is. Here's the situation. When you load a saved search list into turboDial, a copy of that list is retrieved from Infusionsoft and saved by turboDial. So now you have two copies. You have a copy in Infusionsoft, that's the original copy, and then you have a copy over in turboDial. After the list is loaded in turboDial, any new changes to the list in Infusionsoft will not be applied to the turboDial copy of the list until the list is manually reloaded again from Infusionsoft. So your lists now are starting to diverge. Changes are continuing to happen in Infusionsoft, but those changes aren't coming over to the turboDial side. So that starts to create some possible problems. For example, take this one. Let's say an agent calls a contact on your prospects list and makes a sale. That's a good thing. Now, however, an hour later, you have another agent who's also calling contacts on the prospects list, and they reach that very same contact and they offer a discount on the product that that contact just recently purchased. So that's not such a good thing, right? That results in bad will with your customers. So the solution is to use list autosync. With list autosync, a saved search list currently loaded in turboDial can be automatically updated with every change made to the original version of that list in Infusionsoft without requiring a manual reload of the list. In fact, your agents don't even need to realize that these changes are happening to the list that they're working in turboDial. So that gives you a great benefit, right? Even if you have many agents acting simultaneously in your Infusionsoft account, you can be assured that each agent is always working with the latest copy of the list that they're calling. Okay, there's a few setup steps here. Let's go through them. First of all, we're going to try to understand the list's saved search filters in Infusionsoft. That is, how do you set up and configure that list to be created in Infusionsoft? Next, we're going to locate the campaign automation in Infusionsoft where that list is managed, where contacts are added to the list and contacts are removed from the list. Third, we're going to decide how to specify the list. Somehow you have to tell turboDial which list you want updated. And then last, we'll show you how to install the HTTP posts that do the list autosync, and that step's pretty simple. Okay, let's talk about understanding the list's saved search filters. Switching over here to an Infusionsoft account, here we have a contact listing. I'm going to pull up a saved search called Active Prospects. Okay, when you have a saved search, you have a set of criteria columns. That's where your filters are at. This is how you set up and tell Infusionsoft which contacts should be part of this saved search. In this case, it's pretty simple. Any contact that has this tag called turboDial testing category prospect is the tag. Anybody with that tag is in the list. If they don't have that tag, then they're not in the list. That's going to be probably the way 90% of your lists are defined in the search filter here in Infusionsoft when you're creating a saved search list that your agents are calling to. Tags are the way you put people into lists. There's other ways too. There's other criteria here, but most of those are not as often used when we're talking about saved searches for calling lists. Okay, in this case, here's how this list is set up. We're applying a tag to put someone in the list. We're removing that tag to take them out. Now let's locate the campaign automation where the list is managed. I'm going to go over here to the campaign. This is the campaign where this list is managed. Very simple for the purposes of demonstration. There's a web form where a lead can register, and in so doing we decide to designate them as a prospect, and so that web form goal triggers this sequence to run. When this sequence runs, a tag gets applied that says they are a prospect. Okay, and then later on when they make a purchase, a tag gets applied that says they've made a purchase. That tag goal triggers this sequence to run, and the sequence removes the tag so that they are no longer in the list that says they are a prospect. So the active prospect list is that list right here, which identifies contacts that have that tag that says prospect. And they are added and removed from the list using automation in this campaign right here. Let's decide now how we're going to specify this list to turboDial. There's three different options here. You can specify to turboDial that you want all lists updated when you're asking for a contact to be removed or added to a list. You can just simply say all by putting in an asterisk, ALL asterisk, and that says that to turboDial, all lists that turboDial may currently have loaded should be updated to add or remove this contact. Or you can specify the list by name. In this case, we have a list name called Active Prospects. So we could use Active Prospects to specify the name of the list. Or we could specify the list by list ID. Let's work down through these options real quick again. All says you're going to apply these list updates to all lists that turboDial has loaded. Specify by name says you can only apply it to those lists whose name matches the phrase you've given. And specify by list ID tells turboDial that only one possible list can be updated, namely the list that has this ID number. Where do you get a list ID number? In this saved search called Active Prospects that I'm looking at right now, and again, remember I brought it up right here, you can find the ID for this list. It's kind of hidden. Here's how you get to it. Go over here to the options, click options, and then come down to rename. Now we're not going to actually rename this list, but I'm going to open up the rename, and there you see the little rename window. I'm going to make it bigger. And now up here in the address bar of this window, you can see a filter ID. And that's been set equal to, in this case, the number 428. So filter ID equal 428. This is list ID number 428. If I want to specify to turboDial that the list I want updated is list number 428, it will only match this specific list. And that's the safest way to be able to specify the list that you want to update. Then lastly, you're going to install the HTTP posts. There are two types. An add that says to turboDial, please add this contact to the list that we've specified, or remove, which tells turboDial, please remove this contact from the list that we've specified. Let's go over here to the campaign and look at how that's done. Remember back here where the prospect gets added to the active prospects list using this sequence where the tag gets applied. Here's the HTTP post that we've created that's going to add that contact to the list. Let's take a look at it inside of it. Here's the address. You can find that in the slides associated with this video. Merging in the contact ID, filling in our turboDial encrypted key string, which is available in your turboDial management account. Setting the action field to add, giving a list name here. Now remember, I could have said the list ID. Come back here to options, rename. List ID is 428. I could put that here instead, rather than the name of the list, which is active prospects. Either one of those will do. 428 will be very specific. If I have other lists that are named similarly to active prospects, for example, if I have a list that's named active prospects-bill, that list name will also match this list name. So active prospects, in that case, matches both lists, the one that's titled active prospects and the other one that's titled active prospects-bill. So that's why you might want to give a much more specific ID here, because it will only match one list. We're doing an add, and so we want to include the contact's first name, the last name, and the phone number, and I'll use merge fields to put those in. That's all that's required here for this HTTP post. When that post gets executed, turboDial will be notified and will add that contact to the specified list. Let's look on the remove side. Over in this sequence, there's a list autosync remove HTTP post. It's simpler yet. I'm going to merge in the contact ID, paste in the turboDial encrypted key. I'm going to give it the list again. In this case, we're just using the name again. We could use the ID 428. And we're going to say remove as the action. Don't need to have the contact name or phone number because this is a remove. So now we've located the campaign automation that manages this list, and we've added the HTTP posts for the turboDial list autosync add and remove that we need to keep the turboDial copy of the lists up to date as these lists change. If you don't have campaign automation right now associated with managing your list, then you'll need to create that somehow. You may need to consult a knowledgeable Infusionsoft consultant to help you do that if it's not obvious from looking at your account. You can only use List AutoSync if your list is managed with automation. Okay, we've gone through the setup steps for List AutoSync. We've looked at the Save Search list filters. We've located the campaign automation where that list is managed, that is where contacts are added or removed from the list. We've decided how to specify the list to turboDial, and we've installed the HTTP posts so that the AutoSync happens automatically when contacts are added or removed from the list. That's it. You can always work the latest list when you use List AutoSync from turboDial, which comes along with your PowerDial add-on. Thanks everybody. Happy calling.